Welcome to the Charlotte CBMC podcast, a series of candid conversations with area business and professional men. In this series, you'll hear how CBMC has connected businessmen to God, His Word, and each other, equipped them to grow and become godly leaders at work, in their community, and at home. Now, let's join our host for this episode of the Charlotte CBMC podcast.
Well, hello, Charlotte CBMCers, and welcome to another episode of the CBMC Charlotte podcast. I am your coach host, Brian Brady, executive business coach, and I am continuing my interview with Chuba Nwangwu. How are you doing tonight, Chuba?
Oh, wonderful, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, last episode we talked about you coming to faith. We talked about some of the issues you faced growing up in Nigeria and leaving basically the Anglican Church to become a born again Christian. Tonight, I'd like to talk about your early years in college, how you met MJ, and in your early years as a dad. So kind of tell me about that in kind of that chronological order, and so we can get an idea of some of the experiences you had coming from Africa to the UK and then to the United States.
Thank you very much. So I entered college at University of Nigeria in 1985. When I got in, I was already a born again Christian. So I easily joined one of the many campus fellowships. Actually, there was a Deeper Life Campus Fellowship, which I became a member, and then I grew to be one of the what they call coordinators, which is essentially leaders that lead the campus fellowship. And I was blessed to have met several people there, one of which happened to be my wife. Actually, at the time I met my wife wasn't even in that fellowship, but she was a Christian in another group on campus. But because we share common beliefs and our both fellowships share some common bond. So sometimes we have some joint fellowships together, and that's how I got to meet her. And we were not really that close. Until we left. At the time we left, we just knew as friends in church, nothing more, But our friendship that resulted to marriage happened after campus. All right. So and then after campus in Nigeria, there is as a 1-year paramilitary training that every graduate has to go through before they start work. No private or government employer should employ anybody that graduated that hasn't gone through what they call the youth service. It's a compulsory 1-year mandatory service. And you don't have
So you were in the military? I didn't know that.
Well, it's called paramilitaries. You get trained, not the rigor of the full military, but at least some of the part of their training. Okay, so you get trained in that for maybe I think the training is maybe a couple of months or so, and then after that. You get thrown to anywhere they choose. They want you, any part of the country, and you could be sent, even though you're an engineer, you could be sent to go to be a school teacher somewhere, or you could be sent to an office or a private office, anywhere. You don't have a choice, so to say, as to where you get thrown at. Okay, and so that was at that time. Was when I now met now my wife, and then we began to talk. And then as we began to talk, that actually resulted in something start flying up, and it consummated in marriage. I'm so glad, and which I'm very grateful to. Honestly, and at the time,
to the group, just to the listeners out there, I've known MJ for a while. She is a marvelous woman. She's like, I would say, Chuba, would you not? She's probably one of the strong backbones of the church and of your company. She's an amazing woman. She just really is.
You're 100% correct. Actually, I believe that if I had married someone else apart from her, I would not have had a fulfilled life. I am so grateful to God for that. Okay, and let me say this too. When I was there's something that ran in my family. Sickle cell ran in my family. So when I wanted to get married, I knew that, look, I need to do a blood test to make sure that because I knew I was AS, and I want to make sure that my wife is not AS. Okay, because we don't want to bring up a child that has sickle cell. So they did the test on my wife twice, and each time they said she was AA. Okay, with AA, I'm fine. So we got married. We had a child number 1, good. Child number 2, good. Child number 3, here in Virginia. By that time, we're already here in the US, and they say he is a sickle cell. And I said, no, that's not possible. I told the doctors, look, I know I'm not a doctor, but at least I know enough biology to know that AS and AA cannot make an SS. So they reran the test to find out that my wife was actually an AS. So all the 2 times they did it in Nigeria, they got it wrong. But I am grateful to God, because if I had known, I would have missed out on the will of God for me. And maybe it might have a hand of God in it for the mistake they did, because with the thing that my younger brother, died of sickle cell. So I knew how severe it was. And if I had known that before marriage, that my wife was AS, I might not have had the faith enough to carry me through that marriage. Now, just before we leave, I just want to tell you, don't pity me, because God had a purpose in giving me an SS child.
Yeah, and I want you to talk about that, because this is an amazing story, folks.
Yeah.
I never grow tired of this story. So tell us about it's your youngest son, right, Chuba?
Yes, it's my youngest son. It's my 3rd child, Ike. Ike was born with sickle cell at the age of 1 year. He was actually had a sickness which is not related to the sickle cell, but that triggered sickle cell crisis, and other things in his life. So my son at 1 year was pronounced dead here in Atrium Health. So as a consultant, I left. I remember where I was when I was given the news that my son was dying in the hospital.
Yeah, you were on the road, right? You weren't home.
I was at the time, I was a road warrior, and I was at CVS headquarters in Providence, Rhode Island. So I ran back home to Charlotte, and I met almost lifeless body of my son in the ICU, and we waited there. Everybody was cold. It turned blue. I mean, everything. As we were in the waiting room, the team of doctors that had been working on him all day came to tell us, sorry, and told me and my wife, MJ, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm sorry, he's gone.
So how old was he at the time?
He was 1 at the time. He was 1 at the time. So I thanked them. I didn't have any strength in me. I was totally crushed at the time. I couldn't say much. It was my wife that was professing faith, that was strong, that was very, and she just told them, look, that I serve a living God, and I'm trusting that my God is going to bring back my son alive. So the doctors who felt that she was not living, she was living in unbelief or disbelief, just say to us, ma'am, I wish you were right and we are wrong, And so when they left, my wife said, come, let's go downstairs to the chapel to pray. So we went to the chapel. We said we were praying, but we're actually crying. I don't know how long we cried there, but nothing changed on the side of my son. The first day, the second day, the third. On the third, I think the fourth or the fifth day, the heart that is efficiency that was said to be 5%. And they said if it is 10, you are clinically dead, you're dead. Okay, my son's was 5. So the heart started coming up. The team of Sangha Clinic, their equipment couldn't even move anything when they put it on his body. The lady there thought that her equipment was wrong. The nurse said, it's not your equipment, it's the child, And anyway, but on the fourth day, the fifth day, what we begged the doctors to do, please, do not take the life support. At that time, he was on life support. We begged them not to remove him from life support. So, and they agreed. So nothing happened, but on the fourth day, the heart came up to, was coming up 10%. The next day, 5 more percent, 3 more percent. In over a week, the heart was coming up to a point where, and they said, look, if he ever wakes up, he was going to be a vegetable because he must have been brain dead for this long, he cannot live a normal life. So the day he woke up and opened his eyes, one thing they did, they gave him a toothbrush with a toothpaste on it, and to know what he was going to do with it. When he got it, he started sucking it, and they knew that his brain was still intact. In fact, the miracle was so remarkable that after a week or so, we got downgraded to the regular room, and less than a week from there, we got sent home. It was a miracle today. Ike is 23 now, and he is graduating next month in computer science. So it's an amazing miracle. And by the way, on that sickle cell that he had, and you can Google his name and you will see some videos concerning him by Atrium Health, because Ike is sickle cell free now. He had a stem cell transplant. My second son was the donor, and my son, Ike, was the recipient, and so he doesn't have the disease anymore. He doesn't have the sickle cell disease anymore. And that's part of the miracle that God did for my family, and to him be all the glory for all that he has done.
Oh my goodness, that is an incredible story, Chuba. So it sounds like the person whose faith was strong here, not taking anything away from you, but it was MJ.
Absolutely.
She just refused to give up on your son, and she refused to give up on God.
Absolutely. And her faith was strong, very strong today. To be honest with you, I think it was Billy Graham that said that because of all her travels, that the actual person that is key to raising the children was the wife. I could say 100% like that. Up till today, that the detail, the correction, the discipline, the prayers, the volume of prayers on the children is mostly my wife. And
I think you and I, brother, are very, very blessed. We both have Proverbs 31 wives, right?
Hey, absolutely.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. My wife is an amazing, virtuous woman. And let me not even talk about her cooking, but she's absolutely amazing,
Good. So what else is so you dealt with this issue. You brought up 3 other children. What other things kind of took place in this time frame where you're kind of establishing yourself, and you're not a pastor at this point, right?
Yeah.
You're out in the world doing secular work as
Absolutely.
a Christian. Did you encounter any struggles with your faith on that stuff?
Well, concerning not as much of a struggle with my faith, but yes, with my children, because I had 3 boys and 1 girl. So the boys were getting to those age that are becoming very, very troublesome to my wife. And remember, I could be in a hotel room and I get a call, that this boy has done this again, and this something they will not even dare do by my sheer presence alone. They will all try it on their mom. Okay, and they will stretch the boundaries and see how much they could get away with, and they will not even dare. So it was becoming a concern for me, because as a road warrior, I travel on Mondays and I come back on Friday, possibly Saturday night and morning, and then leave again on Monday. So it was tough. It was tough on me. It was tough on the children. It was tough on my wife. But I'm grateful to God that, she was able to put so much in them that today we're very, very grateful. By the way, my daughter should not hear this again. But, after we realized that my son was a sickle cell, that had sickle cell, we had already agreed with my wife that we're going to have 4 kids. All right. Remember, Africans, we have a lot of kids.
Well, you're also a pastor too, so all you pastors have at least 4 kids. I
don't know about being pastor having more kids. I know about Africans.
Well, but here's something, Chuba. I mean, you actually come from a different culture than your kids do.
That's
right?
Correct.
I mean, because for the most part, they grew up in the U.S., right? They grew up in the United States.
Correct.
So do you find any conflicts, any tension associated with that?
Up to today, that's part of the that is the part of the cultural shift that we're still having. Okay, in my culture, you honor, you kind of reverend your parents, you revere them. I mean, you kind of, in some of our culture, you don't shake your father or your mother, you prostrate. And the ladies, they kneel to greet. Okay. In this culture, you don't even in our culture, you don't publicly correct your parents, even if you realize they're doing something wrong. That's the culture. That's the kind of aura or respect that we have for parents. Okay. So, so when our kids were born and raised here, they're picking this culture, which in some cases conflicts from the culture where we grew up. All right. So even though we've taught them, absolutely, they do have respect. They're people of honor, people of respect. I'm grateful that every one of them. My last son is going to be getting his first degree next in a couple of weeks. Okay, my first son is UNC Greensboro Finance. The other one is an AI engineer, Brown. The third one is Greensboro UNC, and then my baby girl is a nurse. All right. So we came with a culture where they have to put give premium on studies and education. All right. So we make sure that every one of them has to be a graduate, at least a graduate. They can choose to do second degree or not. That's one thing that we kind of laid on them, and I'm grateful to God that God has essentially brought all of this to pass. Okay, but as for the cultural differences and challenges, it's part of the things that we are still dealing with even today. Okay, and I'm not sure if that's going to end anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, hey, we are coming up on time, Chuba. Do you have a little bit more time to do another episode with us?
Absolutely, I'll be more than happy to do that anytime. Okay,
awesome, thank you. Well, again, folks, this is the Charlotte CBMC podcast, and you can find this podcast as well as all of the rest of our podcasts by going to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. You can download the Queen City Leaders app where we have these podcasts as well as videos from all our events and so forth. You can also go on to YouTube, look up CBMC Charlotte. You'll find all our videos, all our information, and you can also go to charlotte.cbmc.com. That's our website. You can find information on Operation Timothy, our peer advisory groups, and our young professionals. So we have all of that information just waiting for you at your fingertips. Well, Charlotte CBMCers, that's all for this episode. Again, I'm your host, Brian Brady, and you've been listening to the Charlotte Christian Businessmen's Connection podcast. Until next time, God bless and Godspeed.
We hope you were blessed and encouraged by this episode. For more information about Charlotte CBMC, simply type in the browser address line charlotte.cbmc.com. That's charlotte.cbmc.com. There you'll discover the free resources to deepen your faith. Connect to one of the Area C3 groups that meet each week. Finally, you'll learn about Charlotte CBMC sponsored events like the Queen City Leaders Summit series. Please subscribe to this podcast so you'll know when new episodes are available. Like and share this podcast with other men and help us spread the good news of Jesus Christ throughout the Queen City. Join us again next time for a new episode of the Charlotte CBMC podcast. May you have a blessed and productive day working for the Lord. Thank you.